Welcome to the Weekend Booktopian, our weekly podcast where we talk about the latest in book news, book discussions, and more. My name is Nick Wasiliev, and I'm the social media specialist here at Booktopia, and I'm joined today by Liv Fricot, our content producer and editor of the Booktopian blog. Hi, Liv.
Hi.
Ashleigh Berry, our campaign coordinator. Hi, Ash.
Hey.
And Mark Harding, our brand and content manager and normal host. I've stolen it again, Mark.
I like that I'm the normal host, implying that you are the abnormal host.
Yeah,
well, you know, I had to just say hi then because I nearly went to call you Mark.
Well, you can see the resemblance. It's uncanny.
No.
Yeah.
After that, I will not put.
So first we'll dive into some book news, as always, and then we'll dive into our book recommendations. And then at the end, be sure to stick around until when our guests will go head-to-head in a battle for book supremacy that we like to call Book Fight. And I am terrified about today's episode because the two people who dominate it every single time they're on are going head-to-head against each other. Which of course, I'm talking about Ash. You are terrifying. Scare the bejesus out of me. Oh my God, every time hearing it.
I got 1 point last week. I'm going high.
So first up, we'll dive into book news, and we're going to start with a bit of industry news with Ultimo Press, which was launched around about a month ago by former HarperCollins Australia CEO James Kello and Hardy Grant Chief Executive Sandy Grant. With the aim of kind of being a Sydney-based publisher championing more Australian books. And in the last few days, they've made some very big announcements with former Pan Macmillan and Picard publisher Alex Craig being appointed publisher and Robert Watkins being appointed as publishing director. Liv, I'm going to throw to you for this one because these are big names in the Australian book industry joining Ultimo Press. How do you expect it to kind of impact on the Australian book industry when they start releasing their titles next year?
I think it's a really cool move. I've never met Alex, but I have met Robert a couple of times, and he's certainly a well-known personality in the industry. And I believe he's responsible for such books as Kokomo by Victoria Hannon, and also I think Song of a Crocodile by Nardi Simpson. So he's got a great track record of kind of championing those Australian novels, Australian work. I think this is a really strong move. It's a natural career step for him. But also it's just good to see Sydney getting an indie press.
Yes.
Most of them are down in Melbourne. I don't know. I'm excited. I think this is a cool opportunity for him and for the industry in general.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just interesting to see, you know, particularly with most of the publishing houses down in Melbourne, how this one particularly will perform in Sydney. Also, as a subsidiary to Hardy Grant, it kind of is very much a statement of intent as they're planning to. I think they're planning to do at least 60 titles a year and purely focus on Australian books, which is a really big goal for a first year. It'll be interesting to see how that one goes.
Yeah, definitely.
The next kind of latest news we have is a whole series of book announcements have happened in the last week or so with titles announced by Judith Lucy. We have Max Porter's new book coming, The Death of Francis Bacon, and Lisa Taddeo's Animal book, which is scheduled for release in, I think, July next year. Mark, which one are you most excited about?
I'm probably going to have to say Animal because I read Three Women. And I really enjoyed that book for the most part. And I think she's a really gifted writer. And this is a novel as opposed to a work of, well, I guess, you know, Three Women is debatable, like where it actually sits in terms of storytelling. It's a novel-esque work of journalism. So I think transitioning into a pure novel will probably be something that makes a lot of sense for Lisa Taddeo. So that's probably the one that I'm most looking forward to. I'm also an unashamed Judith Lucy fan. So I'm up for anything that Judith Lucy does.
Can I jump in and say I'm super excited about the Max Porter?
Yeah, that's the one I'm most excited about. Yeah.
He's amazing. I think we've raved about Lenny enough in Booktopia's sphere in general. But it's just such an unusual and wild book. And this new one by Max sounds like, I think it's described as like a series of mini like written portraits of like 7 stages of like 7 states of mind, like as Francis Bacon was nearing his death. I'm really bungling this description, but it sounds weird, and I'm sure that Max Porter's going to knock it out of the park because he usually does.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really exciting to see all of these new titles and stuff coming through. And kind of the last bit of news, which will come as a surprise to no one, because adaptation announcements are a dime a dozen in this time, in these days. But it's been recently announced that Daisy Edgar Jones, who many will know as the actress who played Mary Ann in the adaptation of Normal People, has been announced that she'll be starring in the upcoming When the Crawdads Sing adaptation. Ash, I know you've read Normal People, and I think you've watched 1 or 2 episodes. Are we excited by this? Is this a good announcement?
Yes, I am excited because I knew they were adapting Where the Crawdads Sing, and I'm one of those people who loved that book when I read it. So the fact that we now have an actor named for it is a very exciting progress. In terms of the actor, I have seen, I think, the first episode of Normal People, and it's one of those situations where I probably wouldn't pick her to play the character, but now that she is and I see her, I can't imagine anyone else. So I think she'll be a really good fit for who the character is. And I think it's actually, in a way, very similar to her Normal People character. So I think just in certain personality aspects, I can see this fitting really well. And yes, it does make me excited because we're a step closer to getting the adaptation.
Yeah, it is exciting, and I think it's also. We can only really go off that performance in Normal People, and she was fantastic in that. I think she was probably the standout performer. So I think it's really exciting.
It's good that Normal People show has been a springboard for her career, and I guess the next announcement will be Connell joining a Marvel.
Well, I don't think any of us will be complaining about that. So that's the latest in kind of book news. And before we dive into our book recommendations, we have a promoted book this week, and I'm going to throw to Mark. What is our promoted book this week?
So our sponsored book is the debut novel from Nick Wasiliev. I've never heard that name before.
What?
The anticipation is building in the air, and Chris can feel it. It's been over a year since him and his uni mates, Noah, Logan, and Jock, have been together in the same place. Finally, the gang will be back together. Finally, the beers can start flowing. However, as the night begins, it becomes clear that one of them is hiding something. Little does Chris know this night will take them down a dark path into the depths of each other's lives and the gambling dens of the Sydney underworld, to places that will test their friendship to its very limit. A story of mateship, despair, and redemption told in a Sydney not too far from our own. When Men Cry takes a sobering look at the world of mental health and masculinity, a world where dishonesty breeds dangerous consequences and where the simplest things can be the hardest to talk about. So that is When Men Cry, the debut novel by Nick Wasiliev, which is being published on the 13th of November. Pre-order now at booktopia.com.au.
Oh, shucks. Stop it. I've gone bright red.
Is that your book?
Sorry, go on.
I don't know who this Nick Wasiliev guy is. He's always all this book stuff. I don't know who he is. But the book sounds all right. You should go and order it. You should.
Basically, you can't work as Booktopia's social media person unless you're a debut novelist.
Exactly. Yeah. For everyone else's context, the person before me, Bron, also has published a book out. You should also buy that one as well. Highly recommended. So now we'll jump into our book recommendations for the week. And I'm going to throw to you first, Liv. What books have you been sticking your head in and enjoying over the last couple of weeks?
Oh, this is a great question. I have 3 books to talk about, but I'm only going to really talk about 2 in depth, or 1 really in depth. I just finished Real Life by Brandon Taylor. I won't go too much into this because I feel like we've covered this ad nauseum in various podcasts. But it's such a good book. It's the story of a young gay black man called Wallace, who's a postgraduate student. And it just takes it takes place over the course of one weekend, and it's just very, it's just his father's passed away, and he's kind of dealing with that loss, but also the kind of wreck of his childhood, and also navigating his world with his friends and frenemies in this really highly charged academic environment. It was beautifully written. I was so impressed with this. You wouldn't know that he was a debut novelist. I feel like that's a backhanded compliment, because so many debut novelists are brilliant and then go on to build their careers on that brilliance. And I just can't wait to see what he reads next. It put me in mind of A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. But I think this one was a bit more nuanced. It's an own voices narrative. Brandon Taylor is also Black and identifies as gay, I believe. And it just really captured that really intense space of navigating the world as a gay Black man. And there were just certain moments that your hackles were rising, because he just describes these tense, hostile situations with such brilliant prose that you really feel it as he goes through it. The ending it's one of those kind of unresolved endings, which frustrated me a little, but I think that speaks more to my need to have a resolved narrative rather than any fault of the book. Really brilliant stuff. Definitely pick it up. It's shortlisted for the Booker Prize. I wouldn't be surprised if it won. But yeah, so that's Real Life by Brandon Taylor. Last few days, I've been reading Queenie by Candace Cardi Williams. I've been meaning to read this for so long. People rave about it. It was a huge hit last year. I can't remember. I think it might have been Waterstone's Book of the Year. Either way, it had an amazing marketing campaign. At one point, there were 4 different covers going around for it. And I'm happy to say that the story actually holds up to this intense marketing campaign. It follows a young woman named Queenie. Again, she lives in London. She's also navigating the world as a Black woman. It's a lot funnier than the last book. It's more of a Blackly comic look at what it means to be a Black woman in London. She's dealing with kind of gynecological issues. Her boyfriend is awful. Well, they're on and off again boyfriend. And she's just trying to get by and, just be enough for all the people in her life and all the things in her life. And you just want to hug her. You just want to say it's okay and make her a cup of tea. But at the same time, it's really funny. So there's times where you want to cry, and there's times where you burst out laughing because she said something completely outrageous, but also really true. I'm really enjoying it. I'm glad I finally picked it up. And the last book I want to talk about is one that I've seen people, I've seen everywhere on social media. People are talking about it constantly. And I haven't started it yet, but I'm planning to dive into it as soon as I finish Queenie. And that's Breasts and Eggs by Nico Kawakani. And it's described as a radical and intimate portrait of what it is to be a woman in contemporary Japan. So it's set in Tokyo, where an older sister is returning to the city for breast enhancement surgery, and she stays with her younger sister, Natsuko, and along with her sullen and silent teenage daughter. And it's one of those highly charged novels about the pressure of being a woman and, occupying a female body in such a strange world. And it takes on issues of class as well. It's been raved about. Haruki Murakami has raved about it. I had no idea what it was when it first appeared on the scene. I remember it being sold into us, and just thinking, what on earth is that? But I've succumbed to peer pressure, and I've picked it up, and I'm going to start reading it this weekend.
I'm sensing a vibe. I'm sensing a recurrent theme through all the books that you're reading at the moment, Liv. A lot of fascination with kind of the non-traditional storytellers out there, particularly with Queenie. And I know that I think is Breasts and Eggs a debut? I think so. Yeah, I've heard so many good things about this book, and I've been really wanting to dive dive into it. And I'm really curious to see what your thoughts are on it when you finish it.
It's not a debut it's her first full-length novel. She's written novellas, and she's also a singer-songwriter in Japan. She's won a shit ton of prizes, pardon my French.
There's the language warning for that one.
Going into that one, I'm just really keen to read it.
Yeah, love these recommendations. Thanks, Liv. That's awesome. I'm going to throw now to you, Ash. So last week when we had you on, you were reading the first book in the Patrick Rothfuss series, The Name of the Wind. I know you're jumping onto the next one, aren't you?
I am. Welcome to part 2 of the King Killer Chronicles journey I'm going through. So I'm about a third of the way through the sequel, The Wise Men's Sphere. Still love it, obviously. So to sum it up, it's an epic fantasy. The format is we have our main character who in the present is retelling his story in his own words, his journey from being a gifted child to going to university and learning magics essentially, to now, I believe, Wise Man's Sphere then takes that. He's just left university where I'm up to, and he's now on the path to become this notorious wizard hero that legends and rumours are written about him. Since last week, I can confidently now say that I think this is one of my favourite worlds that has been created in a novel. I am a sucker for good world building, for laws that just make sense, for things that just, you can pick up without it being over-explained. And this has been created with such intelligence and care. You can really tell that the granular details have been thought out. I understand how the currency works in this world. I understand the characteristics of people from all over the lands. I get the social hierarchies. I understand how the university works. It's all this information that has just built a really rich and layered story. And that's one of the reasons why I gravitate to fantasy novels. So this is a big tick in my book, this series, especially this second one. It's really, hopefully in the second part that I'm going to read, really just gets out there and explores the world. This book is about 400 pages longer than the first one. So we're in just under 1,000, which is fine because it's as consuming. I'm constantly wanting to read it. I have no idea where it's going. I can't draw the link between what he's telling and where he ends up. Like, what does he do? I want to know. And the journey is so much fun in this book. The things he gets up to, the little chaotic pranks he pulls with his friends. It's just a really fun book, which is also builds on that fantastical, remarkable journey, that epic fantasy tropes that we like to see with heroes and magic and villains. And I think we had a dragon somewhere along the way. I don't know, I can't keep up, but I don't want to say perfect, but it's really close.
Mark, I know you're a massive fan of this series. Can you attest to how amazing this is?
It is amazing. I've only read the first book, so Wise Man's Fear is still on my shelf.
I think you're saving yourself because since last week I've done research into this third book drama, and I know I'm going to be so crushed and disappointed because the second book started right where the first one left off. So I know there's going to be something that happens at the end of this, and we're already about 10 years past the publish of this book. So yeah, I say just hold off a bit. Wait till at least, we have a date and then you can really enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't think that date's coming anytime soon.
I've got to go on a deeper dive. There's got to be something.
I don't think there is. I think he might be over it. That was like the last thing that I read was that he's kind of like, people are speculating maybe he's just like, yeah, don't want to do it anymore.
That's a bit rude, I think, to be honest. But to also, I've read that book. I've loved that. To get a bit of variance, I'm also have been listening to finally The Binding, Bridget Collins. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have read it or anything. This has been a title that's long been on my list. And I finally wanted to get to it before I read her next book, which I think is either coming out or has come out. But so far, I adore it. It's one of those kinds of really beautiful concepts that's told in a beautiful way. Obviously, I'm listening to it, so it's a little bit different. I really want to reread it to kind of intake the prose, but I know every third book in this genre is compared to The Night Circus, but it's really given me kind of Night Circus, that stylistic vibe in how it's written and just how we flow through, like a kind of whimsical gentleness, but there's an undercurrent of, just maybe a little bit of danger lurking. So yeah, I'm not too far in. It's a bit of a long listen, but I just wanted to bring that out because I know I'm a little late to the party, but I'm also loving that one.
There's no such thing as being late to a party with any sort of book. You're just turning up to the party that is still going when it comes out. That's the mentality I take about. It's an
all-nighter.
It's an all-nighter and an all-dayer because I often come to that's my excuse because I often get to books so late.
Problem is, I want to talk about it, but everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, it was good, wasn't it?" Let's get into it. Sorry?
I'm meant to read it next month for book club. So
okay.
We can have our own little late party about it.
That's weird. That's the second time this year that's happened. I've read Leisure and you read it for book club.
Oh,
was that Seven Husbands?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we will talk in a month.
Love it. Love those recommendations, Ash. Thank you so much once again. And last but certainly not least, I will now throw to the consumer of horror himself, Mark Harding. Are we in sci-fi and horror territory again, or have you expanded your horizons?
I have not.
Love it.
So a couple of books that I'm kind of reading at the moment. First up is Ring by Koji Suzuki. So this is the original Japanese novel that spawned the blockbuster movies, according to the blurb on the back. And so I don't really need to go over the story. I think we all know what The Ring is about. And this novel is basically it. The Naomi Watts character is male in this book, so I didn't realize they gender flipped her for the film. And it's a very dark and disturbing and creepy novel. And I think if you were disturbed by the film in any way, the novel is even more disturbing and sinister. And just even the non-horror parts of it, like the parts that aren't dealing with like the supernatural videotape and stuff, there are just nasty characters like on the periphery, which is I haven't watched the movie in like 15 years, so I don't remember that being a part of the films that they put out there. But there's like nasty characters in a nasty world with a nasty like supernatural thing at the heart of it. So in other words, I'm loving it. It's great. Exactly what the doctor ordered. But like it's been keeping me up at night, and I wasn't expecting that. Because it's just nice and creepy. So that's Ring, which if you're into that kind of thing.
Japanese horror is the best. Japanese horror is, for every experience I've ever had with Japanese horror, it's just they just know how to creep you out, and it's amazing.
Well, according to the back of this book, there's 2 more books in the series, so I'm going to pick them up and finish this. So, and then the second thing that I'm kind of girding myself up to get into is I think the trailer dropped last week or the week before for the CBS All Access adaptation of Stephen King's The Stand. So I have dusted off my old copy of The Stand, and I am going to attempt to read all 1,500 pages.
That's a brick.
December. It's not going to happen. I forgot it was that long. Wow. 1,500 pages of this book. So obviously I've read this before, being the Stephen King stan that I am. But like the last time I read it, I was a teenager. So that's a good decade. This is for anybody who's a fan of his work and who knows what the kind of world that King writes. What's great about this book is it's a little bit of a nexus of Stephen King's stories. So for those of you who aren't aware, Stephen King has created this kind of multiverse where the vast majority of his stories take place in the same world and the same timeline, and events from some books spill over into others, and characters kind of pop up. And some books are kind of more integral to that multiverse than others, but The Stand is a really, really important one. So the main villain in The Stand is actually the main villain from The Dark Tower, which is his 7-book epic saga of kind of all his worlds. So I'm very interested to see how the TV series kind of handles all that. But it's also a timely book, obviously, given COVID, and the disease at the heart of The Stand is like COVID times 1,000. It is a very, very deadly disease, and it's an American post-apocalyptic epic that kind of, I think, started a very fine tradition of books like that. You know, you've got books like The Passage and things like that that kind of take the same form of this desolate, American landscape where you have these survivors trudging across it. Walking Dead, I think, is another example of something that's kind of spawned out of this kind of epic tone, which was first written in the 1970s. And has had this huge legacy. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of getting reacquainted with that world and seeing how it parallels to what's going on in our world today. And I just remember, like, there's imagery from the first time I read this that has stuck with me through the years. The desolate, desolated New York where everybody's dead in their cars and the characters have to walk through a dark, haunted, like, Lincoln Tunnel to try and get out into the countryside. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into that. So yeah, The Ring and The Stand.
Amazing recommendations, Mark. Thank you so much. All right, it's that time. You know it. I know it. Don't be afraid, Ash. You'll be okay. It's time for Book Fight. So fun story about this. It was 1 o'clock this morning. I was sitting in bed and I couldn't go to sleep because of the amount of how stressed and busy we are. And I decided I'm going to be really ruthless with today's questions, and do question because I know that I've got Liv and Mark on the podcast. But we will try, but I'll make sure it's a lot of fun for everyone. So give me your buzzers, please. We'll throw to Ash first.
I'll just go Ash still. It's so easy.
Tried and true. I like it. Liv? Turtle.
Yeah, I got a little turtle ornament on my desk. I found it last week. I was like, I remember that. So turtle.
And lastly, Mark.
I'll go with King.
King. Very nice.
Sorry.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's play Book Fight. Question 1. What is God's final message to his creation in the 4th book of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
God's final message to his creation.
His final message, right at the end of the 4th book.
Oh, it's been so long since I've read those books.
You hear it a lot in customer service. Yep.
Wait, when you say you hear it in never mind.
I do have clues for all of these questions, by the way, because I do worry that some of them might be too difficult.
You hear it a lot in customer service. Does that mean, like, can I speak to the manager?
Not a bad one, but no, unfortunately, that is not the right answer. Mark, do you want to have a crack?
Ash?
Oh, Ash, yep.
Let me try before Mark. I'm just going to go pretty simple, something like, have a nice day.
No, unfortunately, that's not it either.
All right.
Thank you for shopping with us.
No, the answer is, in fact, and spoilers to anyone who hasn't read the 4th book, but it's been out for a long time, so frankly, you should have read it by this point, is we apologize for the inconvenience. Is God's final message to his creation.
Very good.
Question.
I don't think you hear that a lot in customer service. You say that a lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Question 2, and this is a question for any Tolkien nerds out there.
Oh, come on. All right.
How many years was the Silmarillion published after Tolkien's death?
Are you serious? Turtle.
Yep.
I'm gonna guess 10.
Lower.
Oh shit, 5.
No. So,
King.
Yep.
7.
No, not that either.
3.
No.
1.
Ash, you'll go.
All right, I'm going to go 4.
And you would be correct. Ash is on the board. It is, in fact, 4 years. Tolkien died in 1973, and Silmarillion came out a month afterwards. A month to the day 4 years later, in 1977. Question 3, and this is one for all you Sherlock Holmes fans out there. What was the first Sherlock Holmes story ever published?
Oh, what? Oh no. Oh, I swear I know this.
Tell me if you need a clue, because I have clues for all of these. Because clue. It involves a color.
Oh.
King.
Yep.
Study in Scarlet.
And you would be correct. A Study in Scarlet, which was published in 1887. Yes, the very first.
The Scandal in Bohemia, and then you said color, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, look, that was my first thought because that was the first one I ever read, and I thought, oh, is that? I'm sure it's a Scandal in Bohemia, but unfortunately, it's not. Question 4. Who is the protagonist in Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind?
Ash.
Yep.
Oh, I can't say his name.
If you get close, I'll give it to you because it is a weird
Yes?
name. Yes, that's the correct answer.
Thank you.
We're nearing the halfway point, and Ash is ahead, 2 points. Liv is on 0, Mark is on 1. Question 5. Yeah, you're liking this?
Yeah.
Question 5. For 7 points,
Oh, what?
recite the names of the 7 from George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. You get an extra point on offer if you can say them in the correct order.
Bold of you to assume I've ever read a Game of Thrones.
They're really popular books. I can give you a clue for anyone who's actually read, who's ever watched the series. They do mention it in the series. These are the words spoken by both the bride and the groom simultaneously at any Westeros wedding.
That's 2. That's
too hot for me. Too hot.
That's not what season 4, mate. That's not. I don't think that's what people remember about the weddings at Game of Thrones.
No,
this is true.
People die.
I think with Rocky, Khal Drogo says to what's her face.
Any weddings that contain less than 2 deaths are a dull affair. I think is what he said. No, the answer. Oh, I think that was the quote. But I'm assuming that no one knows it. The answer is father, smith, warrior, mother, maiden, crone, stranger. Your face, Liv. Don't worry, Liv. If you don't get this next question, I'm actually going to be personally disappointed in you.
Wow.
Question 6. Which little woman wrote a book?
What? Turtle?
Yep.
Do you mean Louisa May Alcott, do you mean character?
Which little woman wrote a book?
Joe
March is the correct answer. Yes. So
you phrased that very badly.
I know.
It sounded very misogynistic. Which little woman?
I'm talking about Little Women. I'm talking about.
Hey, little lady, I heard you wrote a book. That's all.
Yeah. Well, you got it, and you got it straight away. So there we go. Question 7. The 2020 International Booker Prize winner, Marieke Lucas Rijneveld. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. Rijneveld, thank you. Which country is he from?
Turtle?
Yep.
They are from the Netherlands.
You are correct. And sorry, yes, they.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be condescending, but
no, that's okay. That's okay. You got to get it right. So questions. And now we have 2 more questions left. Currently, Liv is on 2 points, Ash is on 2 points, and Mark is on 1 point.
I thought Ash was on 4 points.
No,
I'll take it.
This is fun. I'll shut up now.
Question 8. For 4 points, name this author. And we can double. I'll double that score if you can name it. If you can name them before I mention their first book title.
Mm.
Who am I? I was born in India in 1903, but moved to Oxfordshire in England the following year. I grew up as Eric Arthur Blair and struggled at school before moving to Burma in 1922, where I joined the Indian Imperial Police for 5 years, a period that would influence some of my greatest work. I moved to
Kiran Desai?
Nope. But that's all right. I moved to Paris. Yep.
E.M. Forster?
Nope.
Damn it.
Not either.
Okay.
It's yeah.
Sorry.
I moved. No. Keep going. I love the guesses. It's all right. So after being in the Indian Imperial Police, I moved to Paris in 1928 and moved back to England 2 years later, where I was involved in several schools before picking up a job as a part-time assistant in Book Lovers Corner, a second-hand bookshop in Hampstead. In this time, I published my first novel, Burmese Days, and my first non-fiction novel, Down and Out in Paris and London. In
King.
Yep.
King. Is it George Orwell?
It is George Orwell. Congratulations. You get 4 points.
My God, he had a mad life.
Yeah.
And he also fought in the Spanish Civil War.
He did fight in the Spanish Civil War. That was exactly what I was about to lead to, and which then at the same time he also published The Road to Wigan Pier. At the same time he was fighting in the Spanish Civil War.
Jesus.
As you do, Cash.
As you do.
And we didn't even get to Animal Farm in 1984 yet.
Damn, boy.
Yeah. All right. So Mark has suddenly jumped into the lead. And we have one last question. It is for 2 points, but to make it interesting, I'm going to make it for 3 to potentially tie it up. Last question. Name the book that contains this opening line. There was no possibility of taking a walk that
Turtle.
day. Yep.
Jane Eyre by what's her name? Charlotte Bronte.
And you are correct. So now we have a tie to make things interesting. And I just realized.
Oh.
So the standard thing to do would be to go to Booktopia's page and find out what the best-selling book of the week is. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to do that. What's the highest book of the week?
I don't know because they haven't sent bestsellers email yet.
Is it Matthew Riley?
My page is just loading, so I'm about to find out if that's true or not.
No, Turtle. Is it
Turtle?
Is it? So is it Trent Dalton? All Our Shimmering Skies?
It is Trent Dalton, All Our Shimmering Skies. You are correct. Sorry, Mark. It wasn't. I just saw it just as it came up, and unfortunately, it was not Matthew Riley. He just fits into the not so good position of number 6. God damn it, Matthew's not performing enough. So we look at
Trent Dalton's still number 1. That's amazing.
Trent Dalton is still number 1. So now we will take a look at the scores, and oh my goodness gracious me, Ash, much better performance with 2 points.
Thank you.
Mark with 5, and then Liv won the day, 6 points. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And that brings us.
That Jane Eyre question was rigged, by the way.
Oh, and the Duncan Adams question wasn't.
Oh, well, clearly, because I didn't get it.
There were at least 3 sci-fi questions in this quiz. Fancy questions.
I know. I'm a cruel man. That'll bring us to the end of the Weekend Booktopian for this week. The Weekend Booktopian is produced by myself, Nick Wasiliev, and you can access all of the episodes for this show on our SoundCloud channel, as well as a whole bunch of other podcasts, including our recent interviews with Jacqueline Moriarty, Dolly Alderton, and Dave McAllister. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, head over and check out our live chat between David Campbell and Jimmy Barnes on Jimmy's new book, Killing Time. We hope you enjoy your weekend and never, ever stop reading. Thank you for listening to the Booktopia podcast channel. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes for free. and get access to hundreds of author discussions, book analysis pieces, and more. Or, if your eyes need a workout, head to Booktopia TV on YouTube. Don't forget, for all books featured in this podcast, and for access to a whole bunch of other fun content on our blog, head to Booktopia, Australia's local bookstore, at booktopia.com.au.